Off the Record with the Indiana 250 is presented by Prolific. When what worked stops working, I point purpose-driven leaders to Prolific, the growth firm. They turn plans into results with full-service marketing and strategy focused on outcomes, not vanity metrics. Head to prolifichq.com to learn more.
I would say don't wait till you're ready. Just engage. Get involved. Go out there and put yourself out there. You don't want to rush beyond what you're prepared for and make hasty decisions, but don't wait till you're ready, because I hear that so much and I see that so much, the hesitancy of, I'm not ready, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I'll get to that someday. Don't wait till you're ready. Just get involved, get out there, put yourself out there and get engaged.
Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in Indiana. Welcome to Off the Record, a podcast featuring leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, which publishes the Indiana 250, a list of the most influential business people in the state. Today, I'm joined by Paul Thrift, CEO and co-founder of Thompson Thrift, a homegrown real estate development and construction company with 650 employees in 24 states. Paul is a Terre Haute native and a graduate of Indiana State University. Paul and Thompson Thrift co-founder John Thompson were trying to pay their way through college in 1986 when they bought a small, repossessed house in Terre Haute for $3,000. They fixed it up, sold it for a profit, and never looked back. Today, Thompson Thrift is a full-service firm with more than $7 billion in ground-up real estate developments to its name. With offices in Terre Haute, Indianapolis, Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, and now Houston, Thompson Thrift has developed projects in the multifamily, mixed-use, retail, and industrial sectors. Among its local projects is a $750 million expansion of Fishers District, just northeast of Indianapolis. Thompson Thrift also developed the Fishers Event Center, home to the Indy Fuel minor league hockey team. Paul has taken on various industry leadership positions over the years, including chairing the Multifamily Housing Leadership Board for the National Association of Home Builders. He's also a past chair of the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, and in 2023 was named the Chamber's Ogletree-Deakins Business Leader of the Year. In 2025, Thompson Thrift won a Top Workplaces USA Award and 4 Culture Excellence Awards, a nod to the company's focus on community service. The company's philanthropic arm, TT Serve, partners with more than 35 local and national organizations on projects that deal with community revitalization, youth, and education. Paul also maintains deep ties to his alma mater, Indiana State. Last year, Thompson Thrift announced a $1.4 million gift to the university and creation of the Thompson Thrift Department of Construction Management at ISU's Bailey College of Engineering and Technology. Thompson Thrift also committed $1.3 million to Indiana State to create a paid summer internship program for students majoring in construction management. Paul, welcome to the Indiana 250 podcast, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Nate, and I appreciate all that you do and IBJ does for the state of Indiana.
Well, I've been looking forward to this conversation, Paul, and I've got a lot of questions for you, but I want to start with what it was like growing up in Terre Haute, Indiana. I know, of course, you, as I mentioned, you went to ISU, but you grew up there, I know, kind of coming in age in the 70s and 80s, and what was that like? What was life in Terre Haute back then?
My family moved to Terre Haute when I was 8 years old in 1976. So I grew up in Terre Haute and really raised my family there. And I would describe it as a friendly, supportive place. And you think about, my journey, and I think a lot about it and really have a lot of gratefulness for all those that supported me and gave me opportunity when really they probably shouldn't have. And I just didn't know it at the time. But I moved there when I was 8 years old in 1976, and really a decade later in 1986 is when I started Indiana State. And started a business, and how many places can you do that? And I still think of Terre Haute like that today. Very welcoming, supportive, friendly environment. Great place to raise a family.
Yeah. And if you look from back when you first moved to Terre Haute as a kid and kind of where it is today, what are some things that you notice are maybe significantly different, hopefully better?
Yeah, so Terre Haute has a lot of assets and kind of good natural resources. It's transportation infrastructure, its institution of higher education with Indiana State, Rose-Hulman, St. Mary's, Ivy Tech, a very strong kind of local business community. It's faced a lot of challenges that a lot of communities, its peer communities do. If you look back to the turn of the 20th century when really the economy was based on coal and agricultural and manufacturing, and so all of those things have diminished greatly. Again, same battles that many Midwestern really communities throughout the country battle. So making that transition is hard and difficult, but Terre Haute's had a lot of wins lately. Its downtown has certainly revitalized from where it was, going through a transition of seeing the retail evaporate out to the edges of the city over the years. But with a new convention center downtown, Indiana State is really, I think, going through a renewal. Have a really strong new president. President Goddard's doing a great job. New, young, progressive, aggressive mayor.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm optimistic about the future of Terre Haute and what we expect to see over the coming years.
Excellent. So going back to when you were growing up there, talk a minute about your first job. What was your first job before you got into what you're doing today?
Well, even as a young individual in elementary, middle school, and high school, I had what now I guess they would call hustles. At the time, they were odd jobs, and so I was from mowing grass to selling different trinkets that I would make and woodworking and other things at school. But my first, kind of W-2 job, and really, I guess now that I reflect, the only one that I've ever had where I went and applied and actually got a W-2 was at Chi-Chi's Mexican restaurant, bussing tables in high school. So I spent a lot of hours and a lot of weeks bussing tables there to work through high school.
We had a Chi-Chi's in South Bend, so I was familiar with that. I think they're long gone, but
they are.
I remember Chi-Chi's as a kid.
I outlasted them, I guess.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we'll move forward to you're at ISU and you're a college student. And somehow you and your current partner, but you must have found a friend, and I don't know if you knew John Thompson, your partner, before you got to ISU, but you can tell me. But you guys decide to work on what would be called today flipping a house, right? Finding an opportunity and seeing if you can improve it and sell it for a profit. But talk about how you and John first met and then decided that you would go down that road.
Yes, and again, that I don't think that was a term then, flipping houses, but we predated that term, and that's what we were doing exactly. We were friends in high school, and John graduated a year before I did. His dad had rental property. He was dabbling in real estate. That year I graduated, we talked about buying a house together. That was 1986, and so every bank in town had dozens of repossessed homes on the books and grass, chest high. I had actually mowed a lot of yards for banks and those repossessed homes in high school. So we found a house, $3,000. It was at 333 South 15th Street. I remember the address to this day.
Wow.
And we probably put another $3,000 in it and a few months of work and sold it on contract. And that really began a now 4-decade long journey with John. And that was the beginning of it.
That's amazing story to start from that little beginning of finding a house. So was that did you guys decide to actually incorporate a company and call it what it's called today at that time, or did that come a little bit later?
It was kind of an evolution.
Yeah.
So we didn't start out with a plan or a business plan or a plan to build a business. We were really just ambitious, working to pay our way through school, saw an opportunity, and it evolved pretty quickly into, hey, we could do this again and again. And we did flipped, if you will, or purchased, and actually at the time we were selling them on contract, dozens of homes throughout college, the next 4 to 5 years, and we tried a lot of different things. 1988, we bought a limousine. It was Terre Haute's first limousine service.
Is that right?
And that was not really profitable, but it was a an fun for two 20-year-old guys to have.
I bet. You guys are probably pretty popular guys in town.
Well, an interesting fact is most of our clients were, 50, 60-year-old business people in town. And it was not our intent, but a byproduct of that. And really our whole story, Nate, is one of providence. God opened doors and led us in places I would have never even known to go or look. And that was actually a catalyst because we met so many people that were, business people on the bank boards through that limo and created relationships there that otherwise, we may not have ever met. But we dabbled in a lot of different things, but real estate really was what we loved and found passion for. And so through that, we began 1990, began building some student housing, purpose-built student housing off the campus of Indiana State. We saw a need. And again, that's just been our model, is see a need and try to fill it. And sure enough, that was very successful. And that really began, our career of finding good real estate and a good location where we saw a need, designing, constructing, managing, and creating value through that process. And so that was really our first kind of major project, was purpose-built student housing off campus, and that led to other things. But really, out of that, we began to take it serious. Hey, we're building a business here, and we didn't know where that would lead us, of course, but that was the beginnings of the journey.
Yeah. Do you remember when you decided to start hiring a team and actually, like you just mentioned, building a business? Was that? Do you remember hiring your first employee and saying, "Gosh, this is real. We're actually got to write paychecks and the whole thing"?
Well, we had to figure out how to do that.
Yeah,
what a 941 was, which I had no idea.
Yeah,
and so all of that we had to figure out really from nothing. And so that was an interesting journey. And I'm sure we made every mistake in the book, but we hired people to help us early. We learned to leverage, labor pretty early. John was really good at that. And so we hired early. A quick story, most of our early days when we were flipping these houses, our labor came from a local mission that required the folks there to work. So we would go pick them up in the morning, work them during the day. And through that, again, just a providential story, we got to know them well, got to understand their journey through life, which was not all that comfortable, and gained a lot of compassion for them. And there's lots of funny stories that I won't go into here, but you can imagine what the stories that led to.
Yeah, that's really neat. It's a great story. So today we mentioned in the intro, you've got offices and you've got projects that are taking you to all parts of the country, and you're in different aspects. You're multifamily, I know a lot, but office, industrial, retail, even. As you think about kind of where you started and where you are today, are there one or two projects that kind of stand out to you that you look back and you say, "Gosh, we really had an impact with that project," or this one was really wonderful for this reason or another?
Yes, we've been blessed to be a part of a lot of exciting projects. That's what we do. Primarily focused on multifamily, but use the word impact, and that's part of our mission statement as a company, to positively impact our team members first, and then the communities that we serve. So I would name two things. The first would be a collection of projects in downtown Terre Haute that really, from about the year 2000 to 2010, we did about a dozen projects up and down Wabash. I used to have a video called A Walk Down Wabash, and we would highlight our projects when we were trying to sell.
Yeah.
But there's a collection there of projects from our office to Clabber Girl, the former Terre Haute House and the hotel there, the Children's Museum, the Federal Building, and other things that we were able to be a part of and be catalysts. And so I think through that, along with the partnership of a lot of others in the city, during that time, we were able to make a positive impact on that downtown. And I'm proud of that, and something we wanted to do and we're still passionate about today. And then the other project you mentioned earlier is Fisher's District. That's been about a decade long now that we've worked with Mayor Fadness, who's just a tremendous leader, great visionary. He's been very supportive, as has all of Fisher's, and the community's embraced that project. But I think that's another one where we can point to and say, hey, we are on our way to accomplishing our mission of really making a positive impact on that community, creating a place. And so through the subsequent now about 5 or 6 phases, we've really created a destination for that entire, kind of quadrant of the city. And so I'm really, really proud of that. And something
So it's a neat, really neat project. And I know the Terre Haute projects you mentioned have had such an incredibly important, played a great role in the resurgence of the downtown, as you mentioned. So those are great ones. I know you're into the thousands now, 25,000, and maybe I'm sure beyond that at this point in terms of the number of apartments you develop. As we do IBJ Media does our events around the state for years, we've been hearing that worker housing and housing in general is just the shortage is real, and it's been felt around the state for quite some time. But it's also, I know, in parts of the country, it's a problem nationally. Do you feel like at this point in time that supply is finally caught up with demand, or do you see, and we'll be more specific here in Indiana, do you see that still an issue? Are we still short on housing options?
Yes, we're still short of housing supply. It's a problem of our time, and there has been a surge of supply of multifamily here recently. But if you just look no further than, the real incredible increase in home values from, say, 2019 to 2024, 25, where you had the median home price go up 62+%, and really put home ownership out of reach for tens of millions of Americans. And prices don't surge like that if you have adequate supply and demand balance. And so the very definition of prices increasing like that is have scarcity. And so we don't have enough supply. We've had a surge of multifamily, but it's been concentrated in the more affluent areas. But when you look out into areas, the workforce housing and say urban areas, but then particularly when you look out to markets like Terre Haute and others, where rents really don't support new construction without subsidy. And so it's kind of a mismatch of locations. You can have the best house that's sitting available if it's in Cleveland and somebody wants it in Phoenix, or vice versa. That doesn't help. And so we have a real affordability problem. We also have demographic shifts, migration patterns within the U.S., and we also have lifestyle choices of young adults putting off these major milestone decisions later and later into life, moving out later, getting married later, having kids later, having fewer kids, buying a home later. The median age of the first-time home buyer is now 40 years old. So it's just astounding. But it's a real affordability coupled with lifestyle choices. But that persists to this day, and there's just really a structural housing shortage coupled with an affordability challenge, which is really complicated. It's a multifaceted challenge to do something about it, because you have federal issues and influence, state through energy codes and building codes and requirements. Then you get down local to zoning and layering on requirements and the NIMBYism. And so it's a multifaceted challenge. And unfortunately, over the last 20 years, costs have been driven up. Probably about 36 to 40% of the additional costs that we've experienced is because of additional requirements that have been layered on, not just how much the lumber cost or the refrigerator cost, but adding on layers of complexity and
mostly at the federal level, would you say? Or?
No, I would say it's very equally applied across the
local,
board.
State, and federal?
Yes. Energy codes are a big culprit, and we've gone past the point of diminishing return, quite frankly, in that. And building codes that require things that are redundant. And just a quick example, our fire suppression just a decade ago might cost $1,300 to $1,400 a unit. Now might be 3 times that.
Wow.
And so the materials haven't gone up 3x. It's just the requirements that they've engineered so many more redundancies into the system, and people weren't dying 10 to 15 years ago in fires that had suppression systems. So we've just over-engineered a lot of things, and so but you take that times 100, and that's what's impacted not only multi but single family as well.
What can a state do? So take Terre Haute, for example, or there's a lot of communities around our state that, like you mentioned earlier, that are kind of similar position. They need housing. There are companies that want to hire, and these companies are having a hard time attracting workers because there's a lack of housing options, or they have to drive further and all those types of things, which is more expensive on gas, et cetera. But what can a state like Indiana do? I know there's been the READY program that has, I think, supported some construction or helped subsidize some of these costs that have increased so much. But is that something that you view as positive? Are there other things that a state can do to help encourage or diminish this gap that you just described?
I think there's a lot they can do, but I think it will take a lot. As I mentioned, it's a multifaceted challenge with requirements coming from a lot of different angles. And so it takes a lot of different things. It'll take a lot of cuts in kind of every stage of the process. So I think that the state can try to get out of the way and try to promote and make it easier as counties, cities, municipalities do the same thing. And we've seen a lot of that. Now, we don't do a lot of tertiary markets and subsidized product. We're focused on growth markets around the country that are non-subsidized market rate. But we're aware and see and have looked at a lot of these communities and continue to. But we're seeing ready dollars. We see corporate entities getting involved because they understand that we need adequate, clean, safe, affordable housing for our workforce. So I think it's going to take corporate getting involved as well as local municipalities, state, at every level, understanding that not just throwing dollars at it, but sometimes it's having sensible application of regulations and requirements, and it may mean that there's some compromise there in making housing available in locations with different aspects of fee forgiveness or tax abatements or other things. But it's going to take a lot to impact it over the course of time, particularly in these more tertiary markets.
Yeah. Well, more ahead with Paul Thrift when we return to Off the Record podcast presented by Prolific. Stay with us. Most organizations hit a point where growth stalls. The message blends in, the site stops converting, the pipeline softens. That's when I tell leaders about Prolific, the growth firm for purpose-driven leaders. Through full-service marketing and strategy, they clarify the story, rebuild your go-to-market, and drive sales. Most importantly, Prolific holds itself accountable to the metrics that matter to you. If you're ready for your next growth stage, learn more about Prolific at prolifichq.com. Welcome back to Off the Record podcast. I'm Nate Feltman, CEO of IBJ Media, and I'm talking today with Paul Thrift, CEO and co-founder of Thompson Thrift, a full-service real estate development company based in Indianapolis and, of course, in Terre Haute. Well, Paul, throughout your career, you've demonstrated a real commitment to communities. We talked about downtown Terre Haute. We talked about your work here in central Indiana. But service, I know, is part of your company tagline, quote, a commitment to excellence, service, and leadership. But it's a real community service mentality that you lead with. And I'm curious, where did that service component come from? The community impact that we talked about earlier come from? Give us a little bit of insight on why.
Yes, well, as you mentioned, our values that we identified many years ago is excellence, service, and leadership. And John and I had individually been involved in charities, ministries, identifying people in need throughout our early career and as we grew. And really about a decade ago, we determined to institutionalize it, if you will. And so we, I guess I'll use the term, got serious about bringing it into our organization and giving our people an opportunity to participate in that and to be involved. It was out of a vision that I felt called that to use our business as my ministry. I'd looked outside and prayed for a ministry and felt like God was telling me, hey, I've given you this platform. Why do you keep asking me for something else? I've given you a very limited scope of skills. You use them and use this platform. So we devised a strategy, branded it, gave it a budget, hired a staff. One staff member at first. Now we have 3 that focus on nothing but our service projects and our philanthropy and serving ministries. And so we built a strategy that is made up of 3 pillars. First, focused on our team. And so coming alongside them, life events, it could be tragedies or celebrating victories, but really coming alongside them and having intentionality about that and having our people participate in that very quietly and confidentially. But that's really paid dividends and gives them a real sense of meaning and support if you're on the receiving end of that. And then our second pillar is community partners. So we partner with, in Terre Haute, we have Next Step, which is a faith-based recovery center that deals with addiction recovery. So we've been able to come alongside them and help kind of lend our skills across the board, whether it's construction or marketing or organization, administration, other things that we're able to do financially. And then in Indianapolis, we have a Heart Change as our service partner here, Cindy Palmer, and they've just been terrific. They work with young mothers and their children to break the cycle of poverty. So again, our biggest contribution there has been some transitional housing that we've been able to help them with, along with other things. But our goal is to get people involved and not just write a check.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been able to do that. And then our third pillar is global, where we're involved in 4 countries in Central America, 5 kind of what we call markets. And we support an organization that finances church building. So we take 5 mission trips a year. As a matter of fact, we've got a team coming back from Peru today. And so we're able to take generally around 15 of our team members on each trip, and they're able to experience that service, communicate with and be with and love on these congregations, these churches, and we're able to finance the church building there, as well as we've kind of had this just fortuitous and really providential ministry come alongside with prosthetic limbs that we're able to help provide in these countries where there's a lot of amputees. And so through that, we've been able to get about 80+% participation from our team members in one area of this service. And whereas 10 years ago, it was something that I think we got a lot of eyebrows raised, or, hey, what are we doing here? What is this all about? Why do I see this new logo? And a bunch of communications about these opportunities. And it started small, and we've just built on it over time. But now our people expect it. They love it. They embrace it. We have high participation. It's just a big part of our culture. I would say it is our culture.
Yeah.
It's the leading thing people embrace and engage and just become who we are. But it's been a journey. But just like anything else in life, if you have intentionality, a strategy, a budget, a plan, then you can make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you described your culture very well, and it's very clear, it feels like, to your employees. When you're out recruiting new employees, and do you find that you attract a certain kind of person as a result? I mean, is this something that you see as, I know you didn't do it for this reason, but is it an advantage sometimes, and from your perspective, in attracting the kind of people that you want to join the company? Or is that something that's not really, much, that isn't present much and kind of in that process, and comes later if the person's interested? How do you view that? It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a big advantage. I think it's a big retention piece. People feel like they're accomplishing something, bigger than just their job.
Yeah.
It is well known by people we're interviewing or hiring. We don't weed anybody out because they want to do this or don't want to do that. But I do think it is what attracts some people to our organization, and hopefully what keeps people engaged and in our organization.
Well, when they have opportunities like you described to to participate in the mission trip and see the real impact that they can have, not just in Indiana but globally. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's really neat,
impactful opportunities. So, talk a little bit about your leadership style. I read an article that described you, and you've kind of already described yourself as a faith-led CEO. Talk about how that impacts who you are as a leader.
Yes, well, I try to be, and it's a daily battle, as I think everybody knows. Really, I try to follow kind of the guiding principle that's often talked about, kind of rarely truly achieved, of servant leadership. And so then it's unpacking that. What's that mean? I think Jesus was really the best example. He said that he came to serve and not to be served. He said, if you want to be great, you must serve first. He humbled himself to the point of death. And so you go through his life, I think he was the greatest example of true servant leadership. The best leadership book that I've ever read is by James Hunter, The World's Most Powerful Leadership Principle. And he talks about love and leadership as being the biggest characteristic of a leader. And he uses 1 Corinthians 13, which we all know is kind of the love chapter, by going to weddings and hearing it read over and over.
Right.
But it talks about love is patient, it's kind, doesn't keep score, it's not resentful, it's not arrogant, and so on. But he really talks about that as being, if he talks about taking a survey of what are the qualities you want to see in a leader, and most of those overlap: kind, patient, generous, not keeping score, not resentful, and so on. And so it really follows that. So he uses that. And again, so I think that the principles are there in Scripture, and Jesus modeled them for us. I do not claim that I've arrived at that. It's a journey, but that's what I'm trying to model. And I hope that our business is trying to model that throughout the organization. And I truly see that in our people. And it's easy to identify sometimes standing back and looking at it and admiring it when I see our people living that out.
Yeah, neat. So we talked about you and John have been partners for I think this is your 40th anniversary, right?
Yes, sir.
Of Thompson Thrift. So you and I both know of many, many examples where partnerships just don't work out for one reason or another. It could be because the business is struggling, or sometimes it happens when you have great success, but for one reason or another, partners break up, have conflict, just don't work out. But you guys have stood the test of time, starting back when you were at ISU together. Talk about what maybe have been the keys to this successful partnership.
Yes, it is our 40th year. We're excited to celebrate that with our team. I think I'll give John all the credit. I used to not think it was that big a deal, but as time's passed and you do gain more perspective, I now understand that it is not all that common.
Yeah.
And so I really think, if I look back and think, well, what facilitated that? I think there's a lot of maturity there, yielding, your will sometimes, or pride. I do think there are other things that were just structurally there that we didn't really plan, but we were at the same stage of life, so we weren't at disparate stages. We've always participated in every venture that we've had. We've not had outside interests, so we didn't have different conflicts of where are you spending your time. We don't keep score on our time. We separated duties, and I think just again, it's providence. I wouldn't claim any real credit or that I'm either one of us mastermind this strategy that kept us together. But it's worked, and it works for us. And so we're grateful for that. And I think some of those things are what made it possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It is rare today. I mean,
for sure.
It's just, to see, partnerships stick together through thick and thin. So it's really neat to see. You've mentioned some of your philanthropic efforts. And I called it out as TT Serve is the name of that entity. Are there other projects that you haven't mentioned that you're involved with that it'd be interesting for our listeners to know about, where you're involved, the TT Serve is involved in?
I mentioned several of them. We have what we label active giving and then passive giving. So our active is where we give our people a chance to participate, where we're actively participating throughout the year and And so I mentioned Heart Change. We had just finished up recently some transitional housing where we took inner city lots and were able to scrape the old facility or house there and build back a duplex that they now own debt free and can lease it and actually gain revenue for the ministry there, as well as provide people. So that's very rewarding when we're able to go back and see people living in that facility and enjoying raising their kids and having opportunities. And but really, the light and the glory goes to to God, but to the Cindy Palmer and her staff there who work with those ladies every day. So being able to be a part of that is just such a pleasure. I mentioned the prosthetics. That's a really cool story. Time does not allow today, but on a side, you talk about Indiana State and just institutions like that were, John and I graduated there, but I met a guy in Central America. He had developed this prosthetic. He was a high school teacher working in a shop class. Over a course of about a decade, he developed this. Some of the parts are purchased from a manufacturer. Others are 3D printed, the knee, the ankle, the foot. And it's very functional, highly functional. But I met him on a bus and I get talking to him. Where are you from? I live in Alabama, but I'm from Indiana. Where in Indiana? Southern Indiana I was from. So where'd you go to school? Indiana State. What years? 86 through 91. Very time I was there. Of course, I didn't know him at the time, but just sitting on a bus in Central America, I meet this guy. So we've gone on to help support the production of his legs, expand his production, help fund his leg production each year and expand it. And so we're able to help deliver those and fit those in Central America. So it's very exciting. Of all the things we do, I think that's the most immediate because you see somebody that's
amazing.
They don't have a leg in one moment and now they do. And some of them, if they're agile and fit, they can walk as they're walking out, and that's incredible. So
amazing.
Chills just sitting here thinking.
You never
about
thought you'd be doing that back in the late '80s at Indiana State. That's awesome. That's amazing impact.
It's very cool.
Very very cool. So speaking of Indiana State, as I mentioned in the intro, you and John have established an internship program at ISU for students majoring in construction management. Talk a little bit about what inspired you to do that, how you see that program working in the future.
Yes. So I'll give John a lot of credit, props. He's been very active in the construction technology department there at Indiana State. He graduated from that department, and so it's obviously been beneficial. We've hired so many people out of Indiana State. I think we have 104 ISU graduates working now. So we're very committed to trying to hire graduates from Indiana State. So we care about the future of that program selfishly because it provides us, a great workforce, and also because we really love the institution, and it's great for Terre Haute. We decided a long time ago to really try to organically grow our talent. So we have a very robust internship program. I think we have about 35 a year. We have about a 41% permanent placement ratio. So I think we have 55 full-time members that came out of our internship program now across different years. And so we really work on that. So that was a big component of experiential learning for the construction technology, providing them avenues to get out into the workplace throughout their education. And the best way to do that is through a robust internship.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great program and going well. So I want to talk a little bit about mentorship. And I almost always ask my Indiana 250 off the record guests, who have been important mentors for you? And I'm sure you have at least one or two.
Yeah, the list is long. Many of them probably don't even know it. But there was a gentleman that was in real estate. He's long gone. But Paul Pfister in Terre Haute was a great mentor. Gave us a chance early on with many opportunities. I would say Mickey Maurer is one that I would classify as a mentor. He was very generous with his time, would meet with me, and I learned a lot just by conversations with him. And so, again, he may not have known or classified it. Maybe he did, but he probably knew it, and I maybe didn't. But he was a great mentor. I would say John Thompson, not the Thompson Thrift, John Thompson, but John T. Thompson. I've admired and watched him, got to know him well when we served through the seats at the chamber and spent a lot of time with John, and just watching him operate. I always was taking notes every minute I was with him. So I could just keep going down a list. Yeah. But those are some that come to mind that I think have impacted me among many others.
Well, you and I share a mentor, and Mickey Maurer, that's for sure. So I can identify with that one. And of course, I know John Thompson, the one you're talking about, and not your partner, very, very, very well. And what a wonderful guy. So those are great names to mention.
Yes,
absolutely. I'm curious, what do you do in your free time? This is a question I just thought of that I should be asking all my guests, because I'm sure it would be interesting to hear from all my guests. So I'm going to start asking this one, but you're my first guest that I ask. I sometimes get it in our speed around a little bit, but what's a fun thing that you do to kind of totally relax and not worry about anything else in business?
I would say two things that come to my mind first. I love to snow ski. I'm an avid snow skier. And so that's my favorite kind of pastime or sport. And then we really love to hang out with our kids and play games. So we play a lot of games, and it gets pretty competitive. And really, when you're engaged with your kids in that way, everything else kind of goes to the wayside. You're not thinking about anything else but beating them at the time.
What's your favorite, most competitive game that you all play?
We play a lot of games, but hands down, euchre is our go-to.
That's a good one. That's a good Indiana game.
It sure is.
Midwest Indiana.
And it gets pretty competitive.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to learn a little bit. We'll learn a little bit more about you in the speed round. So we always finish with the speed round. Favorite questions, quick answers to some common questions that I ask everybody. So your favorite movie?
Oh, hands down, Tombstone. Our families watch that over and over.
Nice. Favorite place to vacation?
Telluride, Colorado. Love the mountains, love skiing.
Favorite musical artist?
I would have to say my two sons, which are very musically gifted, write songs, sing. And then after that, a distant George Strait would be.
Nice.
Yeah.
First thing you do in the morning?
Well, I have my routine. I travel a lot, but I try to always keep my routine consistent. I listen to a devotional, and I try to get some workout in.
Good for you. I need to follow that one. Title of the last book you read, or your favorite book?
I'm reading a book right now. Favorite book, probably business book, would be the one I referenced earlier by James Hunter, The World's Most Powerful Leadership Principle. Great book. Peter Drucker's Effective Executive, I think, is also just tremendous. But I'm reading a book right now called Sacred Pace by Terry Looper. It's about finding God's will, getting neutral, where you're willing to not just pursue your own agenda, but trying to truly seek God's will for your life.
Fantastic. What food can you not live without?
Chips and salsas. Yeah, can't live without that very long.
Best advice you ever received?
Business advice. Paul Pfister, who I referenced earlier as a mentor, told me, look, you can watch every ratio, you can watch all the numbers, but it's cash flow. If you don't have cash flow, it'll take you out of the game. Mm-hmm. And so that's always stuck with me. Yeah. So before I watch anything else, I just watch cash.
Nice. That's a good one. Advice for a young person who wants to be a leader at their company, leader in their community. What would you advise?
I would say don't wait till you're ready. Just engage. Get involved. Go out there and put yourself out there. You don't want to rush beyond what you're prepared for and make hasty decisions. But don't wait till you're ready, because I hear that so much, and I see that so much, the hesitancy. Well, I'm not ready. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I'll get to that someday. Don't wait till you're ready. Just get involved, get out there, put yourself out there, and get engaged.
Yeah, it's good advice. Well, Paul, really have enjoyed the conversation. Appreciate you taking the time to join the podcast, and thanks for all you've done. You're an active, very active member of our community at large, and from a state perspective, been involved in so many important organizations, and I know you continue to give back as we've talked about. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real honor.
Appreciate it. To learn more about other leaders on IBJ Media's Indiana 250 list, go to indiana250.com and look for a Page 2 feature each week in IBJ. We'll be back with the new Indiana 250 off-the-record conversation soon.